Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 131 of the High Sensitivity Podcast, and thank you for listening. If it's your first time here, we talk about video game and movie news, as well as what we watched or played over the week. My name is Barry, along with my co hosts.
My name is Craig, and the day has finally arrived. It is Scorn Day, baby.
Scorn Day, baby. My name is also Craig, and I guess happy Plague Tale Eve as well,
Yes.
and Scorn Day.
Scorn Day.
Well, Scorn Day on the podcast, considering that it was released last Thursday, right? Yeah,
Friday.
It's
Friday,
not like
yeah.
last Friday. It's not like it came out, today.
Yeah, but we
or
finally
anything.
get to talk about it.
We do get to finally
Yes.
talk about it. But before we get to that, let's get to the news, which is always mentioned on this podcast.
Yes.
So,
It is.
news gaming wise, really the only piece of news I have is Sony kind of trying to be in Microsoft's way in the acquisition of Activision. And for those of you who don't know how this stuff goes, yes, Microsoft did buy Activision, but it first needs to get approved by other world like Federation trade centers, of FTC, the Federal Trade Commission from the United States. There's one in the European Union as well, and then there's a third one that I can't remember its name. But for this particular story, it's not needed. Where the current deal is set up at is the European Union is actually investigating. They're not just saying yes to the deal; they're actually investigating to see if this violates any of their fair trade commission rule sets, where Sony has kind of come out and said like, oh, if they get Call of Duty, you're not promoting competition, you're in fact destroying it. And, we're the little guys here. And then Microsoft apparently has gotten pissed enough about this to where they're like, I'm sorry, to where they don't go, I'm sorry, but what they mention is like, one, Sony has the bigger market share in gaming as of right now.
Mhm.
And two, it seems like the main holdup here is that the game being a day one, like, Game Pass game, to where if Sony wants to like compete, they need to start offering their exclusives as well as a day one Game Pass game. So
Mhm.
it's kind of all over the place. To be honest, these are $2 billion companies who I really could give a crap about who owns who or do anything like that. Like, I'm one of the gamers that does own both consoles, owns a Switch and a PC as well. So kind of, it doesn't affect me as much as I know it affects probably most of the general public that only can afford or want to have one system. Do I think Call of Duty is ever going to go exclusive to Xbox? No, it never will. But there is definitely a portion of fan base here that when looking to see what console you're going to get, they're going to be like, oh, if I get Game Pass, not only do I get all of like a bunch of free games, I get the Xbox exclusive day one games as well without having to pay extra money. So there really is a lot of back and forth, like with who wants what and who's taking advantage of who. But I when I think inevitably this deal will go through. It's just a matter of when, and it's weird to hear Sony like, and it's not uncommon for them, but they do cry wolf occasionally
Mm.
and make things difficult for Microsoft. And I don't know. I'm not going to get into all of what Microsoft owns because, in general, Microsoft is the bigger company of the two. Of course, they were able to afford buying
Of course.
Blizzard, but if Sony wants to answer back, they can. Like, they did acquire Bungie, so if they want a first-person shooter, they can start to develop that for them as well. But I don't know what your guys' thoughts on it are. I know we're all kind of like, Sony is crying.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things that were mentioned, right? First was when all this came down, I thought it was funny that Microsoft came back and said, they're like, well, first of all, we wanted to put Game Pass on PlayStation and you guys blocked it immediately and said, absolutely not. And then also, I thought it was hilarious that they said, if you want to, kind of combat the competition, then you need to start putting your first party titles day one on your subscription service, which is 100% correct, right?
Mhm.
Will they ever do it? Probably not. But if they truly wanted to compete in the streaming, subscription service, then all they would have to do to combat this is be like, hey, guess what? God of War is free day one if you have PlayStation Plus Premium, right? Like that's all they have to do.
Yeah.
Are they going to do
Yeah.
that? Absolutely not.
No, they're
Whereas
not.
Microsoft, every game with them, they're like, yeah, day one, it's included. So the whole thing is comical to me that it's two giant corporations being like, it's not fair. What you're
Yeah.
doing isn't fair. I'm like, okay, all right. And like you said, Barry, like we are in a good position that we have both consoles, right? Not everybody has that position to be like, yeah, I can play it on either, so I don't care which one it comes out on or which one has a better exclusive. I don't care. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's just me. I tend to lean more towards Microsoft, I guess, but Sony the past couple of months with everything is kind of leaving kind of a bad taste in my mouth.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm the kind of person that you guys know I'm a PlayStation guy, I'm a Sony guy, but their actions make I like I in I respect Microsoft's actions more than Sony. Like, and half the time I feel myself trending towards the Microsoft side of this. I mean, yeah, these two, it seems like two rich children just arguing over what toys they can buy in a
Yep.
in a Toys R Us or something like that, but I'm just mellow about like caring about how the other one feels. They're making so much money off of us anyway, and I don't know what PlayStation wants to do. Like they're not stepping fully into this what they would consider their Game Pass direction. And if they're gonna roll out their own service where you get rewards and there's possibly like and there's a tiered subscription service, then they gotta, what are we, 6 months in now? 4 months,
Yeah.
4 to 6 months in?
Yeah.
They gotta take some steps. They have to take some steps. And like, I mean, they're not gonna do it with God of War, but
Right.
how many games are coming out like that are PlayStation exclusive that they can just take that extra step with and really show their customers and fan base that they want to give us something that could mimic even slightly what Game Pass has been able to accomplish. I I don't know what game they take that step with. Stray was a fine representation for the first game because it was
Yep.
only like $30 or $40 anyway. But they're not showing that they're taking a heavy step into this new platform that they've released and what they're planning on doing with it. So checks all go to Microsoft, and if I see stuff in the news about Sony complaining about things like this, I can't sympathize
Right.
with them. I mean, I can't sympathize with either. I'm not nearly as rich as them, but you know, it's just I've acted more mature in the last 4 months than Sony has, and that's sad
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Would you agree that out of the three companies, so I'm including Nintendo, that Sony would be the worst with the streaming service? Like I would put Nintendo ahead of Sony
But
just
Nintendo
because
doesn't
of
even
what
have one.
I'm talking about, like their 64 stuff they've done in
Oh,
the
okay.
past couple of months. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like I just look at, yeah, Nintendo's not doing a streaming service, but like the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and N64 games that they're churning out now, I feel like is a better deal than PlayStation Plus. And I loved PlayStation Plus Premium when that first came out, but we're a couple
Mhm.
months deep in now where they're adding like 2 or 3 games a month and they're not good. Right? I
Yeah.
think this coming month they're adding like Assassin's Creed or something.
Well, no, all the
Like,
Assassin's Creed games are on
are they
there.
on there?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're already on there. I'm not sure what the games are this time around, but like they did add Deathloop, which was a very high
Yeah.
touted game.
So did
Um,
Xbox.
well, yeah, Xbox as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
They both
Mhm.
did. Yeah, I just feel like, again, we talked about this one right before the premium was coming out. They need to keep up with it, and they're not so far. I just don't
Mhm.
think they are. Fully
And
Yeah,
commit,
based on your
Sony.
question, I would say Sony is the worst based off on your question.
Yeah.
Nintendo has that wonderful collection, and every
Yeah.
time they release a new one, it's like it makes you feel like you're on cloud nine because they have like a specific way that they're introducing every single one that they
Yep.
release, and also it's less expensive than
Yeah.
the
50
top
bucks a
tier.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, instead
Hmm.
of like a, what, 120 or
Yeah.
whatever it's. So yeah,
Expensive.
Sony's got to be the worst.
Yeah.
yeah. So the only reason I'm like I could almost interchange Sony and Nintendo, but I like my reasoning is for one, we're interested in those Nintendo classic games. So we
True.
have that benefit of doing that, where most gamers, especially if you're young, you do not care about
Yeah.
60 Nintendo 64 games at all, or Super NES or NES games. So that's where like I could see it switch. Like me personally, I would say that I do prefer like Nintendo, but I think overall and in general, like Sony and Nintendo can be flip-flopped based on the type of gamer you are. We do tend to be the older crowd, so like that, the 64 emulation and all the other older consoles, yes, we get to play that and it's awesome. But kids who have a Switch, they don't care about those games. So
True.
I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah,
think that's something that's to Nintendo's detriment, because they'll never, they will never release like a Legend of Zelda game on a streaming service day one. I can
No.
no,
guarantee you there's like a
No.
negative percentage of
They don't
that.
ever need to though,
Yeah,
because people are
exactly.
gonna buy a bazillion copies every
Hmm.
time.
of course. That's a good point, Barry. That's, I mean, I wasn't even considering the demographic that the first graphics they saw were PS3 and
Yeah.
360 and Wii U, Wii, so you bring up a pretty good point. Um,
That we're
Like,
and
old.
that was,
yeah, like there's definitely a case to be made
yeah,
where you can
yeah,
probably get some newer gamers to try out like Ocarina of Time, because that one is considered one of the
Sure.
greatest games of all time. But I think for the
yes, it
most
is.
part, people looking at that are gonna people looking at those games on there that like we have fond memories of, and they're gonna be like, I have no idea what this is, and it looks like crap. Then it probably also doesn't play very well. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
there's definitely a different demographic who probably would put Sony's above Nintendo's.
That's fair.
But that's all I have
Uh,
for news.
okay. I have a couple here. The first one that I definitely want to get into is the update on the Bayonetta story. This is getting to be a big deal. So we had a video released this week from Helena Taylor, the voice of Bayonetta in the first two games, coming out and saying that no, it wasn't a conflict of schedule. It was the fact that they literally offered her $4,000 to voice Bayonetta, which is abysmal. It's
Oh
kind of going
wow.
back and forth on this, and I was reading a bunch of things, and people were saying that like, oh, this was probably because they didn't want her in the game anyway, and it was a way to get rid of her by just extremely lowballing her so they could get a bigger name, maybe, or they just didn't want to deal with her anymore. Regardless, you have her putting a video out there saying, this was their final offer was $4,000. I think that's ridiculous, and she's actually calling for everybody to boycott Bayonetta 3, donate that $60 to charity instead. Is that going to work? Probably not. Um,
Mm.
but the whole thing has been like, I've been super excited for Bayonetta 3, and now we're getting close, and all this comes out, and I'm just like, man, it kind of like ruined my excitement on it now. You had the director of Bayonetta, he deleted his Twitter account. So it's a mess. Yeah, Jennifer Hale basically saying, she came out I think today and was like, yeah, I can't talk about it. And that was her answer, because it's not her fault. I don't blame her at all.
No.
Like they called her in to do the voices, but the whole situation is in my opinion pretty bad.
Yeah, based on what I've been reading, she she kind of felt like she had ownership of the Bayonetta character, which is
Right.
probably why she thought she deserved more. That's not
Mhm.
necessarily how that works. Like that is Nintendo's character, the Bayonetta or
Right.
Platinum Games' characters. But I will admit, $4,000 does seem like not a good.
It's low.
Yeah,
That's
that's
low.
not. It's not a good one. So a part of me kind of wonders why you would even offer $4,000 in the first place, and then just be like, no, we're going to get a different voice actress or something like that instead. Like, you could have just probably done that instead of offered her an abysmal $4,000 and then have her, do this.
Yeah.
Don't even give, if you're not going to like re sign them, or, I guess they were just trying to do pennies on the dime there, where they're like, oh, if she says
Yeah.
4,000, great, we got a steal. And then if not, we can go hire somebody else for probably much less than what she wants to get paid for.
There's no way that they're paying the replacement $4,000 though. She's way too big of a name in the voice acting community to be getting $4,000.
Yeah, so like there's and I think to that point, there's still a lot of questions that maybe remain. that we're
Right.
not completely sure about yet. But
Yeah, like why that number? You know, because
Yeah.
like if you're trying to low ball to eventually rise, I mean, after the success and the iconic voice that Bayonetta has, because of that voice actress, like, is that a statement? Does the director have an issue? Like, these are the questions that are probably maybe popping up in your mind. Like, was there something in the second or the first creation of Bayonetta that made somebody sour towards her, so that's how they offered this third? Or is it just simply being cheap to see if they could just get away with paying her $4,000? These are the questions. Obviously, we don't know those answers,
Yeah.
but I would think that that character, whoever voices her, is worth more than $4,000,
Oh, for sure.
regardless. You
Yeah.
know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I looked at it as like, if I'm being extra generous and say, I mean, say it takes 2 weeks to do all the voice lines, right? 80 hours. That's like $50 an hour. That's, I mean, that's not bad, but again, that's not, I don't think, the standard. And I think it would take more than 2 weeks to
Mhm.
record a game. Like, that's a lot of dialogue.
It is.
So,
There's a lot of cutscenes
yeah. And
and a
doing
lot of talking.
multiple
Yeah.
takes. Yeah.
Hmm.
It just seems extremely low. So, if that's the case, maybe you're looking at less than that. You're going down to like maybe 25 or less dollars an hour.
yeah.
It's
And then
not great.
maybe there was something in it where she wanted a percentage of
Hmm.
like the game sales. Maybe that's why. Maybe they offered her as low as much as they did cuz like I I do think Bayonetta 3 is going to sell very well.
Hmm.
Based on all the
Hmm.
trailers I've seen, and maybe that's what she wanted. She's like, "Oh, you can pay me this, but I also want a percentage of game sales." And then they go, "No, we're going to give you 4,000 and a percentage of game sales," or something like that. Uh, and then that's where like the quote for $4,000 comes out because technically that's what they offered her. So
Yeah.
They
I
could
don't
have
know.
come out and said that though, and they haven't.
Yeah,
Right? They could have responded with that, been like, "Yeah, we did offer 4,000, but we offered her 5% of sales of the game and merchandise." And then it wouldn't
Instead of
look so
deleting
bad.
Twitters. Yeah.
Correct. It
Instead of.
makes it look a lot worse.
yeah, and who knows? Maybe maybe like the person who hires talent for Bayonetta 3 like was new, didn't know how much this person was worth or something like that. Like again,
Yeah.
there's probably a bunch of stuff we don't know.
Yeah. As of right now, it just looks bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Real
Just in
bad.
general.
they
I'm
did just
curious to see if it affects sales at all.
yeah, they did just release a new trailer too
Yeah,
today for Bayonetta 3. So it's kind
Kudos.
of like, yeah, okay, we're trying to cover it up. I see what you guys
they
are
are.
doing.
Yep. They're like, "Hey, look at the shiny trailer."
Yeah, right.
All right. Second thing I have is we have an update coming on the 19th, which would be Wednesday of this week for Silent Hill. Supposedly there are multiple games in the works, possibly another movie. I love the first Silent Hill movie. Second one I could take or leave, but that first movie was great. So anything
Hmm.
more Silent Hill, I'm in. I don't know about you guys.
Yes. Please give it to me. Like this is one of those franchises where you're like, why was it so forgotten?
Mhm.
Now, I can agree for anybody who doesn't like the first movie, I get it. I liked it
Yep.
a lot too. Um, I was just something about seeing Pyramid Head on screen and
Yep.
and seeing the nurses in that particular scene, just in general, the vibe of what Silent Hill is supposed to create. It was just really nice to see that. And I am surprised, as most gamers are, that they haven't really taken a step to put something out. I mean, we had the PT trailer that
Yep.
got us all excited. It's still revered for when it came out and what it did to the population who played it or watched somebody play it. So, to see that more is coming out, I know that there's got to be good things on the horizon. We have so much time in
Yeah.
between like the last Silent Hill and now that they can drop a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I know, Barry, you're excited.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing. Horror games and horror
That's gonna
movies
be
are
the
not
thing.
my specialty. So,
Yep.
and I do know the history of like Silent Hill and how like beloved that franchise is. And it's if they're making more, then finally, their people are finally going to be getting what they want, and then that's what makes me happy. It's the
Yeah.
fact that people will finally
Me
get stuff that they're looking forward to. Am I
Yeah,
happy that it's probably another scary game you guys are gonna want me to play? No, I'm not exactly thrilled.
I mean,
well, like,
it's not
there was a
good.
time we were talking about being old. There was a time where it was Resident Evil or Silent Hill.
Yep.
That was like the that was like the Kobe Tracy McGrady. If I can quote something else that makes me feel old, like there was like there were people that were on a side, where you're like, nah, I'm not playing that. I'm playing Silent Hill. So that I remember that from back in the day.
I think like
But
the similarities were there for Resident Evil and Silent Hill, but Silent Hill was always more psychological, whereas Resident
mhm.
Evil was like zombies, like stuff running after you. I appreciate that it took a slightly more like I'm gonna mess with you as opposed to Resident Evil. So I'd be interested to
Yeah.
see what they can do now. And then the last piece of news I have is news I'm gonna label as okay with a big question mark. We got a Stranger Things crossover in Far Cry 6. One, why now? And two,
Yeah.
huh? uh I watched I mean, I own Far Cry 6, but I watched somebody play through it because I couldn't be bothered to reinstall it. But okay. I just don't understand why now and why at all, really. So weird.
There's probably a percentage of people who like love Far Cry and are playing it, and then that's who they're making it for. It's just I do
Yeah.
believe that there's a very small percentage of people who are doing it, and they had come out with some Stranger Things like related stuff before, so this is just kind of I guess adding on to it. But Far Cry
So
6, if you're still playing it, there's some new content for you.
I know it's been on sale a lot lately, and I don't think
Yeah,
the game's terrible. I just never finished it. I got bored.
Mhm. There was too much.
yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
was way
just
too
another
much.
It's just another 120-hour game.
Yep.
It's just that now.
Yep. But I'll pass it over to you, Craig. That was all my news.
I have like kind of some trailer news. The first one was about a Bayonetta 3 trailer, and it's just kind of funny where the original like news earlier in this show did go. I just wanted to mention how like looking at it I was excited. Just so funny talking about this now after we were talking about that. I'm excited for it being built on the for the Switch platform, because what I'll talk about later in the show is I beat Bayonetta and I'm in Bayonetta 2. I was trying to just like sneak that in before Scorn. So I'm just experiencing why you should be excited, barring the other news for Bayonetta 3.
Right.
And the new trailer definitely showed a playable character that you seem to play a lot more than and without unlocking, without the Devil May Cry Bayonetta style of like playing the game and then unlocking like other people you can play as.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you guys saw that trailer. Clearly, they have dropped another trailer that I didn't even
Yep.
see today to just brush things under the rug. But the I don't know how excited you were after you saw that trailer, but it kind of got me excited. The new character looks great, and there's just like those classic. They just keep adding demons that she uses in her various combos, and I, it's hard to think that that's the kind of game that keeps trying to top itself, and I, I was excited after seeing that particular trailer. That was my first bit of news. I don't know if you guys have anything to say. Really,
I
we
mean, it
just
looks
No,
talked
good.
about.
The
no,
game
yeah,
looks
Bayonetta
fine.
3, I'm excited for.
Yeah.
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 Are you canceling your pre-order?
No.
Either of you, or did you
I don't have it
pre-order,
pre-ordered.
Craig?
I don't pre-order
Okay,
anything.
that's right. You don't. Um, the other trailer I had to talk about is they also dropped a Sonic trailer demonstrating a little bit more of the battle system, but mainly showing off a skill tree, if you can call it that. I don't know if you guys saw this trailer, but they showed a very, 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 very small skill tree that is supposed to be part of the game. But as the trailer went on, it kind of made a little bit more sense. As you progress through the game, you unlock specific things that can essentially add to your combos, or are going to be specific ways to defeat certain enemies, battle certain bosses, things like that. I like that they make an attempt there, because I've honestly, in the last 3 months, been trying to like Sonic. like this game that's coming out. Like I like Sonic from like my gaming, just my gaming background, but I've been trying to like this game. Now, what the trailer showed again is like I don't know how this open world is going to play out. I know that they have it sectioned off probably into stages, just like bringing some of the older games into it by having a stage, but it looks open world. But it still looks like a pretty barren landscape to me. The enemies, there was a couple of bosses that looked fine, but the enemies don't look exciting. And I'm trying to grasp the idea of this dropping in November and it being 65 to 70 on Metacritic right now. So I don't know. Did you guys happen to see the trailer at all?
Yeah.
I did not.
It's a very small skill tree, Craig. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm more so excited for when the embargo drops for this game.
Yeah.
Because like I'm so curious, because to me it still looks like a train wreck. And like
Mm-hmm.
I really want to play it just to see if it's like as bad as I think it is. But like, is this not coming out the same day or the day before God of War?
Correct. Yes.
Like
It is coming
Yes.
out the day
there
before.
is absolutely zero chance that anybody except maybe small children is picking this up instead of God of War. Zero chance. Right? Like if you have the
Mm-hmm.
option and you can only buy one, are you buying God of War or Sonic? It's not even like you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just can't imagine this game is going to sell well. I feel like we're going to see it after the holidays for like 20 or 30 bucks. And that's sad to
Yeah.
me because
Probably.
I want it to be good.
Why is it so hard to get Sonic right?
I,
Why is everybody else at least putting out 2 to 3 good installments in a 10-year span or a 5-10-year span? It's just why can't you get Sonic right? Why,
Going fast is
you know?
difficult. It's very
Apparently.
difficult.
It is.
I guess. I
And
don't know.
then the last thing I had was some smaller news. It's Elden Ring. Latest patch 1.07 hints at DLC, including a new legacy dungeon. The patch itself also did some minor quality of life improvements. It buffed magic. It helped with the PvP balancing, but the speculation continues and continues to rise on the DLC coming out for Elden Ring, which is pretty interesting to me because there are still streamers playing it like it's the first month that it's out. And if we're talking about Elden Ring as a legacy, as a game of the year, you know, I am interested to see what they drop in terms of that. I'm not saying I'm going to go back and play it immediately, but the rising talk of this downloadable content on there and them adding to an already incredibly immersive world that is Elden Ring is it's just nice to see. They can keep supporting that game as long as they want. People are playing it without with besides standard patches, people are still playing it religiously.
I still haven't beaten the
That was the
first
other thing I
boss.
had. Still haven't.
So like, I don't have much to say about it, but when talking about Elden Ring, there's actually, and this has nothing to do with like the video game itself, but Bandai Namco and From Software did a limited edition release of the vinyl set for
Oh.
Elden Ring, and it looks fantastic. But
Mm.
there's been a huge issue with people getting missing or duplicate discs. So it's like a 4 disc set, and they're getting 3 duplicates of disc 3,
Oh wow.
and not getting the
Oh
other
wow.
discs. So, and this is only just something because I follow the video game vinyl like Reddit, and apparently they're having such an issue with this because first off, it was limited edition. These were numbered,
Oh.
so if you start repressing them, like it's like you've ruined now the limited edition portion of things, and people at this point are being offered just refunds for it. Like you get to of course keep the discs that you got, but at this point Bandai Namco's like, "Hey, we can't fulfill the orders. Like, we're not repressing the discs. You either can put in a ticket and hope that something gets repressed at some point, or just take your refund and take the mess that it is." At that point, I think it's just insane how like I've never really, I will say with Bandai Namco, that's right. My collector's edition of Tales of Arise was delayed by like a good 2 weeks, and that's when
Mhm.
I gave you that code, Craig. So,
Yeah.
um, it just stinks for any like vinyl player, and it's just any like vinyl enthusiast, I should say, and it's just too bad that it seems like there's going to be a ton of people who love Elden Ring that maybe their like experience of the game is spoiled because of the fact that they got this vinyl set and it's things have been ruined because it hasn't been fulfilled properly. It's an
If there's
interesting
Yeah,
one
story. You
something
guys might
like
want to
that.
look at that.
if there's
I
one
might
thing we
look at
know,
that.
it's that vinyl collectors are willing to stay calm, right?
Yeah, vinyl only got big vinyl only made a recent comeback. They could probably wait another 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even know that, but I don't normally get into vinyl on for video game soundtracks.
Mhm.
Not yet, anyway.
Mhm.
That sucks to pay for that kind of money. I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Oh, it
Yeah,
definitely wasn't. It
and the refund doesn't make you feel any better.
Yeah.
Nah.
I get a little bit worried about the Horizon vinyl set now that I've ordered it, but I'm gonna go with I gotta direct like I just have to hope that Sony knows better. So Sony has to like look at that and be like, yeah, we can't do that. So
Yeah, true.
but yeah, that's gonna be it for news this week. Let's get into games, in which the games we played are all of us have played Scorn.
Yeah, baby.
Not have beaten it yet. I am
I
apparently
beat it.
2/3 of the way, according to my roommate. And much like you, Craig, I played Bayonetta 2, and Bayonetta 2 is a lot of fun.
Oh my god, yeah.
Scorn for me, and also NHL 23.
All right.
Okay.
I had myself a like longer weekend and I needed something real chill, so I finally got convinced to play Disney Dreamlight Valley. So that's the other additional game. I've only played 5 hours, so I can save that till 2024 because of all the other games coming out that I'm gonna
Yeah,
be playing. But if you want a quick hot take, I can throw that at the end. But other than that, it's Scorn and Bayonetta,
that
but
game's so
particularly
chill
Bayonetta
though.
2.
I love Disney Dreamlight Valley. It's just so nice.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it as well. we could we
You
could
know what's
chat a
not
little bit
chill?
about it.
Scorn.
Scorn.
Finally,
Wait.
Scorn.
Okay, so I wanna start with. Obviously, I have beaten it. You two have not, but I feel like it's only fair that we start with Barry's impressions.
do it.
Being
All
the
right.
most
Let's go.
excited of all of us to play this.
Yes. Currently trending at a 72 on Metacritic, only one
Sure.
point higher than Soul Hackers 2. So I
So
don't
it's
want to hear
better.
that this is also a top 5 game. There's also more reviews on Soul Hackers 2. So
Oh, it's
Scorn, I
game of the
think, will
year.
eventually drop.
Game
Uh,
of the year.
I'm glad it's
We can
not
totally
like
get this
10 out of
answer.
10 games of the year, to be honest. And
If you're gonna
it,
fight for Soul Hackers, I'll fight for Scorn.
I'm not actually fighting for Soul Hackers. But with Scorn, there's definitely some cooler aspects to it. I definitely think the art design is it's super unique, of course. It is
Hmm.
definitely
Oh yeah.
something that, like, I guess more probably a lot of video gamers are desensitized, and especially like new media kind of has us desensitized to all like the phallic, you know, based statues and like the weird kind of, gore that this game shows
Oh,
itself off to be.
just
Uh,
wait.
it's just
Mm.
it's a very strange game. Like for the most part, I can see why people are so confused about it. One, it's a pretty short experience, which is nice, especially in
Mhm.
games today. But
Mhm.
like two things, like there is no help for you in this game.
Mhm.
I spent way too long on the prologue because I didn't know about like and it was the whole puzzle with getting an egg
Mhm.
and that kind
Yes.
of thing. I thought I did it and then I didn't. So I'm like running around this huge map for all intensive purposes forever. And then I have to go
Yeah.
online to figure out the answer to the puzzle because I had no clue about what to do next. I do think the first person shooting, like, in what world can you not walk and reload at the same time? Like, it's almost like
Yeah.
this man, you can't chew gum and walk at the same
Yeah.
time, is I think the equivalent of this. So The gunplay is definitely left more to be desired. I think the puzzles are good and unique. I just really wish there wasn't like such a rough puzzle upgrade for me. There's this one puzzle where you have to get these gears to all light up at once, and
Mhm.
I had to have my roommate come in and like look at it for a little bit and like
Yep.
practically and he did solve both of them because for me I was getting so frustrated at it cuz
Yeah.
at some point, like how with Uncharted does its stuff, they usually try to give you some help
Mhm.
at some point. This game doesn't give you that. It's just you either get it or you don't. And then you're looking it up on, on your phone to figure out the solution to the puzzle. So there's definitely I think a lot left to be desired at that point. I do think the game is intriguing enough to me the same way Blonde was to where I want to know more. I want to know what's going on. Like it's that sense of discovery because this game has that
Yeah.
weird bit of it. It's just that there's also no dialogue. Like I was looking for a subtitles button when I first started the game up and there's no need for
Nothing.
subtitles because no one
Nothing.
talks.
No.
Yep.
So
No one
it
talks.
I get it's going for this super atmospheric type of game. I definitely see where like people be like, yeah, this is a really interesting form of art. This game kind of exudes what games can show off. And then definitely going to be the other people that go, yeah, this game is terrible. Like it sucks. So
Yeah.
this game will end up being a divisive portion. Thanks for me. I need to get to the ending, which apparently I'm getting pretty close to. I wouldn't be surprised if I finished it after we're recording here today. It's just a matter of does the ending stick and does it explain anything that's going on? Because to be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just walking around hoping that I don't die for the fifth time because the little long shot spitters are all hitting me from across the map with a
Oh
point
yeah.
0.5 second reload where I have to aim my gun down the barrel for a good 5 seconds before I can even get an accurate shot. So
Yep.
you could probably make some you could definitely make some upgrades to make the game I think a little bit easier for people, but there's definitely some very frustrating points about this game that I'm not, particularly happy about.
Did that like did the game need the first person shooting, gentlemen? I
It.
mean,
I don't think it did, but I think it would be very monotonous if it didn't. You
okay.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needed it, but it needs to do better with it. Either like make it so we can't shoot, but maybe we have to outsmart the enemy, much like with Doctor
Right.
X in some of like the other
Mhm.
Resident Evil games. Is it Doctor X is his name? I'm thinking of the
Mr. Doctor
Mr. X.
Mr.
Mr.
X,
X.
sorry.
Yep.
Where like it's not so much about shooting him, it's about solving a puzzle while he's chasing you.
Mhm.
Cuz
Yeah.
sometimes in Scorn, these enemies can be killed, but you're not really meant to face these things one on one, especially some of them.
No.
So it's just like
Yeah,
if
the
you get
bullet
caught in a
sponges.
corner, if you get caught in a corner, there's no like leeway. There's no like, oh, like here, we'll let you phase through him so you can run
Right.
past and do your and like try and get yourself some space. If you get stuck in a corner, you're not going anywhere. You're stuck. You're getting killed and restarting.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they're trying to add a little bit of pressure and kind of like the whole anxiety portion of things to it. I just wish that they did that part a little bit better because the gunplay, like it is really really rough until you get like that shotgun. Uh,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because that pistol is terrible. That pistol, and I'm sorry, but what's even the point of the gun that like is a literal like push? Like
It's your melee.
It's for
I know,
the
but
it was
I
for
know,
the
but it's like
enemies in the
it's a pokey stick. That's all it is. It doesn't have any range.
It's
Takes
your
too
it's
long to
your
move up.
fallback when you run out of ammo because they don't give you very much ammo in this game. It's
J-
yeah.
very seldom.
just give me a stick
I'd
to
like
beat it with at that point. Like
Mhm.
well, I'd
the
like to say
fact.
that it's specific. Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. No,
Well,
no,
no,
no.
it's just
No,
like
you're good.
I get annoyed the fact that it's like two pumps of a shot, and then I
Mhm.
have to
Yeah.
wait another 15 seconds for it to reload while the
Yeah, but
enemy
if you hit
has.
him in the head, it kills him.
See, I'm not sure exactly about that portion of things. Like sometimes that happens and other times it doesn't. So it's like I'm not sure
Mhm.
how accurate all that stuff is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought honestly as I was playing through it that besides being a fallback when you run out of ammo, it's felt like they were specifically giving you that gun to kill those things that sprayed the mist in the
Mhm.
one section, or the, like, I think it was Act 2 or whatever, Chapter 2, whatever it's called, you know. And I found those to be pretty funny because as I was getting through that part, I was like, are there any enemies in this game? Because I was told there was at least some type of first person shooting. I found it interesting where they decided to start adding danger, you know, because at that point in the game you have such a I'm quite safe feeling, and maybe
Mhm.
all these sounds that I'm hearing that are disgusting are just because you had like the, I mean, this is not going to ruin it for anybody, but there's something in like the second part too that you kind of follow,
Yep.
and then he it's not a jump scare, but he jumps on you.
Yep.
So like I was like, okay, but I'm not supposed to fight that thing, you know. That's all, that was like cutscenes. So they, it's so long, and it's not a long game, but you're in the game so long without having to think in terms of that type of survival, that when you finally do get the enemies, it actually changes your perspective a little bit. Barry, I'm with you. Craig, you're probably going to say the same thing. The first person shooting is bleh. You know, it's not the best thing. The guns look freaking cool though. Reloading does look cool. It's just the time and in the moment is not cool. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention is, like, for me, the atmosphere. I liked the H.R. Geiger aspect, which he did Aliens.
Mhm.
So when I first played that, or first walked through the first 15 minutes of it, I thought it was just the movie Prometheus. It just looked like the movie Prometheus, which I was a fan of, specifically what organisms and what their abode look like. Like they're just giant temple abode that they spend the majority of the movie in. So like that's where I got a lot of satisfaction. It's sound heavy. I wish I had played the portion that I played with headphones on, to create even more of an atmosphere. I actually turned the game up a little bit to scare myself a little bit more, or at least creep myself out a little bit more. The game's not scary, but it does creep
Mhm.
you out. So they nailed it there.
Yeah.
uh, it's just going to get such polarizing reviews because of the other things, Barry, again, that you mentioned, and Craig, you're probably going to get into as well. That's what affected it for me. And the puzzle that you were talking about with the egg, they made the ones that you had to find so indistinguishable from the other ones that you literally had to stare at the screen for like 15 seconds and be like, oh, that's the one I have to move all the way to the left,
Yeah.
or whatever. So there was that too. That pissed me off. That puzzle did piss me off. But anyway, Craig, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's like it's an interesting choice to me that that first puzzle is gonna make a vast majority of people stop playing the game, right? Because it's so difficult, and they put you in this insanely large area with a million places you can go, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. So at that point, you have to decide, like, am I going to be okay with this type of game, or not? Because if you're not, you should just stop, right? Because the whole game is like that. To me, this game is literally just an old school adventure game, right? Like that's it's all it is. It's puzzles. It's yes, you have guns, but it's kind of a last resort because one, your reload is slow, your aim down sight is slow. To me, it's just like this. It was like an old school like PlayStation 1 game to me, and I liked that. I Because the ammo is so few and far between, I spent the majority of my time like faking out enemies and running around them instead of trying to kill them, because you're just going to waste all your ammo, and it's so pointless because there might be like two enemies and you use all your ammo, and then you go into the next room and there's three more, right? And then you're like, oh, what do I do? There was a point, I think it was like Act 4 for me, where I had to I don't want to like spoil stuff. There's like a giant monster and you have to open
Yeah.
three sides of it, right? And I had opened the first one, and I was at the point where I had no ammo, I had nothing to refill my health, and I was at one hit to die, and that's what my checkpoint was. So I had to spend like 30 minutes like trying to juke past enemies and just dying over and over. And to me, it wasn't like frustrating. It just reminded me of me when I was a kid trying to play like, not necessarily like
Ninja
Resident
Gaiden.
Evil. Yeah. Yeah. Where you're like, oh man, that checkpoint was terrible. My only option is to completely restart this act or,
Yeah.
or get good. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
figure out a way. That puzzle that you're talking about, Barry, with the lights,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you had a hard time with. I did the first one. I couldn't, the second one I was there and I was like spinning it around forever and I could not figure it out. Right. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to load my game. That way I can start over. But I didn't realize that my load was like an hour ago.
Yeah. Oh
So I,
boy.
so
Yeah.
I loaded it and I almost stopped playing because I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I have to do all this over again. But overall, like I enjoyed the game. Um, Very safe to say that when you beat this game, you're still not going to know what happened or what's going on. They don't explain anything at all. Nothing. Like I couldn't even tell you what I played. Um, the when you get at the end, like the gross factor amps up quite a bit. Um, Not like, to me, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm desensitized because we play so many horror games, but like
Mhm.
there's some things that you do at the end and I was like, oh my god. It's pretty gross. There's there's a lot, and I don't know, I guess I'll have to look it up because I watched that ending cutscene and I had no idea what they were trying to say. No, none, absolutely none. But for me, I was like, oh, that was a fun 4 hours. Frustrating, yes. But I felt good when I figured out the puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're just like,
Mhm.
yes, I figured it out on my own. Um, it's not a game of the year for me at all, but I think, me personally, I would give it like a solid 7 out of 10. I think it was done. It's something different. I enjoy different stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think the shooting's as bad as you guys think. I just think
I.
they force you to be selective, which is a very old school type of way to
Way.
play a game,
Yeah.
right? It's not fast first person shooter. It's, if you're going to shoot, you better have it lined up because we're not giving you any more ammo. And that's going to turn people off, right? And that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's 7 out of 10 for me. If you do finish it, Barry, I would love to know what your thought is as far as what the story is, because I got nothing.
I have been drawing conclusions to what's going on, and I'm interested to see. Like you say, it gets worse. Like I am
Oh
at
yeah,
that. I'm at that monster thing at the moment. So I'm not sure how
oh,
far that is in that game, but it
it's
is
once you get past that, it starts getting a little weird.
okay.
Not that it isn't weird already,
Not
Yeah.
but
that it isn't weird
that
already.
was like that section. I was like, this is weird, and why is he staring at me? And then there's like what I would consider like the only boss fight in the game,
Okay.
that's coming up for you, and like that whole section, I was like, ugh. You know what I mean? It's just gross.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm gonna.
You're right. Being different and them succeeding in like making different interesting, I think is something that, the game
yeah,
can be commended on. It's I don't know, like I would have much rather you give me just that gun at the beginning of the game rather than give me that weird pushy thing. Get like
yes,
I do hate the beginning portion. When I finally got a gun, I was able to like, okay, like I stand a chance now.
hmm,
But those little tiny things, they reload in point 0.5 seconds and they're
yep,
accurate. You don't dodge those. You gotta
Yeah.
like because at one point during those puzzle portion of things, I would just go into the puzzle because I'd be invincible because
yeah,
they're not hitting you
Mhm.
after that.
hmm,
So you complete the puzzle, grab your thing, and you run out of the room, and
yep,
hopefully you live. So that's where eventually I got to because it's just like you're right. I don't think you're supposed to try to be fighting all these people. You can if you
nope,
want. Um, but it's almost like the toddler section in Resident Evil Village,
yep,
to where
yep,
you're not really doing anything to that thing. All you can really do is outsmart it, and that's really
Yeah.
all you're meant to do with it. So
you want to play that again?
it definitely
It's a
wouldn't
really good one.
it wouldn't be as bad for sure.
No, no, nothing is worse than not knowing that baby's coming.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nothing. Yeah. That was. Agreed.
Okay, what else? Bayonetta 2. And why?
Bayonetta 2. What I'll say for Bayonetta 2, because my impressions are still going to be pretty short on it. I'm more than halfway through the game, but uh it was hard for me to imagine that Bayonetta 2 like is that much better than the original Bayonetta, just like with combat wise and fluidity. I I really enjoy just like the zaniness that Bayonetta gives me, especially like when I'm going from Scorn to Bayonetta. Like it is just two
Yeah.
absolutely separate things that don't relate,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's just like Scorn, I'm interested because I have no idea what the heck's going on. Bayonetta, I have no idea what it's going on, but it's fun.
Hmm.
That's all I
Hmm.
know. So, like Bayonetta 2 just kind of ups the ante with everything, with the combos you can do, with the meter, all of the different other options you have in that game. Like you have the ability to do a lot, and I'm hoping that Bayonetta 3 like just continues to build on top of that, which it looks like it's going to, and looks like it's
Yeah.
going to take advantage of the Switch, cuz the Wii U, like Bayonetta 2 was definitely kind of confined because it was on a Wii U, to be fair, and nobody
Hmm.
really ever played it. So
Yep.
Switch though, everybody's got a Switch. So
It's true. Very valid.
hopefully Bayonetta's ready to make her grand reveal on one of the, better, more popular selling Nintendo systems.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I to give my opinion of it, beating Bayonetta and going right into Bayonetta 2. I can't tell you how many times in the original Bayonetta I was like, who was this game made for? Because playing it on normal was so frustrating. For me at least, I didn't nail like any of the combat the way I wanted to at certain parts. I felt like I didn't get over a silver medal.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I kept screaming out like, who is this game for? Because I tried to just play it on. I'm the kind of person like most gamers. I just want to play it on normal for the normal experience. Well, normal is annoying,
Yep.
and I forget the portals that you go through for like the extra events
Yeah, the
were
Musselheim.
insane.
Hmm.
Muspelheim, thank you.
Yeah.
Those were insane. Even like the first or second or third one were insane. And like while the story, like you pay attention and you don't pay attention to the Bayonetta story. That's the way it appears to me. It's like something's happening. She's doing a backflip. Some demon pops up. An angel flies in a book showing you what the name of the new angel is.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna fight again. So like I don't care necessarily. It's how Devil May Cry's story eventually got for me. Like the first and the second one I was paying attention to, even the third one, but like I stopped like paying attention. But transitioning from one into two, because I'll tell you what, gentlemen, I'll say it right on the air today. By the end of the first Bayonetta, I turned like the last couple of levels down to easy. I
Yep.
just did. I wanted to beat it at that point. And no offense to the game, I just was so confused as to why, to me at least, I don't know if you guys had the same, why it was so hard to me. And Bayonetta 2 pops off, and number one, you go in, and there's a lot more collectibles. In the first Bayonetta, I stuck with the main sword because none of the other weapons seemed that appealing to me. Every new weapon in Bayonetta 2, I want to equip either on her arms or her legs. They up the ante with the set pieces, and while Bayonetta 1 on the Switch, I think has a more forgiving cut scene or quick time event. They're more forgiving when you miss it because I'm trying to watch. In the first one, I was trying to just watch the cutscene, so my hands off the controller. I'm taking a sip of water, and then I'm like, oh, I was supposed to do a front flip there, and now she's dead. Well, they're really generous with that. But the second one hits right out the gate. It looks better. She looks more mature, but still Bayonetta. You're fighting angels and demons in this one. The bosses are like freaking incredible. They feel like more God of War-esque than the other one. So even though Bayonetta did have some great scenes with bosses, so the momentum of what Bayonetta 2 provided for me, and I'm about halfway, 60% through, is what made me immediately excited until, again, earlier in the show about Bayonetta 3, because if that's what they're nailing in Bayonetta 2, that was confined to the Wii U, but then got a Switch release. That's again to say earlier, I cannot wait to see what something built for the Switch specifically, Bayonetta wise, um, is it will look like. So it's a great game. I like the second one a lot better. It's more refreshing to play. It's not easier, but it is easier, and
More
the
accessible.
fluidity more accessible, and
Mhm.
the fluidity of her combos and the actual gates of hell has stock that I want to buy in this one and can afford to buy, because in the first one, if you're not good, you're not getting any of that stuff, you know. And did you guys have like an issue with the first one like I did,
Oh
just
yeah.
like
Yep.
just staying alive?
It's tough.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
It's like
insane.
Ninja Gaiden tough.
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah,
So
I there's definitely like a portion of me that was like, "Oh wow, Bayonetta 2 is so much easier." Like there are times like
Yep.
especially in
Yep.
Bayonetta 2's like opening act, I'm getting pure platinums now just
Yep.
because it
yeah,
seems as though one like I'm going to go with like the up and like frames per second gives you that little bit of extra time for your dodge to activate witch time. I think that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, Bayonetta 1, like you definitely didn't get as much candy as you did to like heal yourself or do anything with. You usually had
yeah,
to make it.
Yep.
Uh and like with that, I think that's why I'm having so much more fun with Bayonetta 2 because on normal
yes,
I'm doing good. And I think that's what they're nailing right now is that balance. You know, there definitely
mhm.
is a couple times where I get hit and you know, there's some times where I'm low and I need to be smarter with my movements. But there are other times when, especially a boss battle, like it just starts to click. You're like dodge, hit, 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 dodge, hit, hit, and it just keeps building and building and building. And you're like, okay, I'm invincible. You literally, you know, get that feeling of you've downloaded his move set and now you just need to defeat him
Yeah,
and
Yep.
get it and do it in the most stylish way possible because it's fun with Bayonetta in the cutscenes where you need to be pressing X or Y and I never know which one. So I'm just guessing. So even before something happens, I'm mashing X and then there's a 2 second delay when it's
yeah,
I was supposed to mash Y. So
yeah.
Yep.
but
Such
I
good games.
yeah, it is.
Um, so let me just say this: NHL 23. It's an NHL game. Moving on. That's literally all I'm gonna say about it because they didn't change anything.
You know, I
True.
will. That's actually surprising to hear because I've been reading some of the reviews that like the on ice stuff is a lot better on NHL. I'm
Sure.
I'm not buying it when it's $70. I'm gonna
Sure.
wait till Black Friday
Yeah.
and get it on like a $40 sale or something
Well,
like
you can
that.
you
For
can at least do the 10-hour trial.
that's right, we do have the 10-hour trial. You're right with EA
Yeah.
Play, so I'm at least going to do that
Yeah.
for sure, just to see whether or not it finally gets there for me. NHL has been the same game for
Ever.
years.
Yeah, forever. I don't know. I guess I didn't see like it plays well enough, right? It plays how I expect it to.
Mhm.
But I just didn't see anything new, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I was like, oh, this is just NHL. Like, I played like 2 games, did the 10-hour trial, and I was like, yeah, I don't need to play this anymore. Definitely not going to be using all 10 hours, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Like, I would rather play FIFA than NHL,
There we go.
honestly.
Okay.
Like, it's just a better game overall.
Well, yeah, there we go. So that's going to be the games we played this week. Uh, other than that, we're going to go into movies and TV shows, which we have the season finale of She-Hulk, the season
Yep.
finale of Rings of Power.
Mhm.
Hey, that's all I have. What about you guys?
She-Hulk for me, I watched 1 episode of Rings of Power, so I need to like hunker down
Okay.
into that. And then I watched the new Hellraiser movie.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I finished She-Hulk. I caught up and then caught the last episode. You guys maybe can go on without me with Rings of Power because it just doesn't entice me enough. There's some new trailers that made me feel like a little better, but like based off of what I heard you guys say about like how the beginning's kind of like takes a
Snooze
bit.
fest. Yep.
Yeah, I need a little bit more excitement to go that. But She-Hulk, and then I watched Halloween Ends.
I'm like halfway through that. I need to finish it.
So She-Hulk then, because we've all
Yeah.
gotten through She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
So She-Hulk as a show I actually do enjoy just because it is a lot different from your regular Marvel show And
Mhm.
I get that they are playing on that to a T with the season
Yep.
finale portion of things, and
Yeah.
definitely breaking the fourth wall in the meta, which is something that she does a lot in her
Yep.
comics apparently.
A lot.
So it's it's refreshing to see this kind of new, I guess, take on it with me, where like the season finale, like all of this stuff comes together and you're like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. And She-Hulk goes, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. And then,
Yeah.
she breaks the fourth wall by jumping into another
Kicking you
uh
back to the home screen,
yeah,
the
Yeah.
and
Disney
jump
Plus
Yeah. That
home
was good.
screen.
yeah.
That was real good.
Yep.
Yeah, and then jumping into another Marvel thing with Marvel Assembled, and
Yep.
then going into the Kevin Feige bot and talking to him to get the ending changed.
Yep.
There are definitely some slow points to the season. I do think though there's a lot of fun to be had. Like it takes itself not as seriously as any of the other ones, and I like that comedy portion of things.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
not that like the Daredevil one for me was one of the best episodes, but it's not just that Daredevil was in it, it's the fact that it's the hero with like the leap it and rip it, or rip it and leap it. I
Rip it
don't.
and yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, that catchphrase he says
It's
like 4 or 5
yeah,
times.
it's just so stupid, but it's just fun. And that's what I like about the series. And I do see why people don't like it as well, though, because it's not regular Marvel stuff, and that's going to be the kind of problem you run into when you're trying to experiment with this kind of thing. Like, there are so many people that texted me, like, "Did you watch the She-Hulk finale?" And I hadn't watched it yet because this weekend I was at a wedding, and I'm just like, "No, I hadn't watched it yet." And at the end of it, they're all like, "Man, it's an experience." And I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, okay." Like, you won't tell me if it's bad or good. Uh, but overall, like I watched it and I thought it was good. It's an experience, but I enjoyed what they did with it because it's so much different from anything else that they've done.
Mhm.
Yeah, look, I think this is one of the best shows they've ever done, personally.
Okay.
Agreed.
It doesn't like Marvel has like it's kind of been stuck in a box, and I don't think it's a bad box at all. But like all the Marvel shows are like the same thing. And then for She-Hulk to come along and literally say all the Marvel stuff is the same thing, like literally to the Kevin bot. Like I appreciate that they can look at it and be like, just like the comics, like it doesn't always have to be super serious. You can have a show that's not directly tied into what's going on in the Marvel universe and is just there to be a comedy and a comedy courtroom drama, right?
Mhm.
To me, like that's cool. It's something different. You have all these Marvel characters that you can bring into a She-Hulk show that would never see the light of day in anything else ever. Like the characters in the when she goes to the Abominations retreat and is
Retreat.
talking
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
all of them, like Porcupine and all those guys. Those are people that you would never see in a normal Marvel show, but they're perfect for a She-Hulk show. I mean, all I really want is She-Hulk and Deadpool to interact. I think that would be hilarious
That would be
because they
sick.
both break the fourth wall all the time. But yeah, for me, like this is one of the best shows they've ever done, and I think that it's already confirmed they're doing a second season. Um,
Good.
I think this should be a regular, and you don't necessarily have to bring her into the movies. I know they kind of joked about it when he said no. The Kevin bot was like, "No,
Yeah.
you're not going to be in the movies." I wouldn't be surprised if they bring her in, but I don't think they necessarily have to. She can kind of exist off to the side.
Yeah, I'm gonna take your take on it, Greg.
Mhm.
I'm with you on that. I think it's something different. It's one of my favorite Marvel uh bits of media
Mhm.
as of late, so to speak. It doesn't take itself seriously, but there are some serious parts. There's the real struggle of her trying to decide is it, like or her grappling with She-Hulk's fame and it being with her professional life versus like Jennifer as a person, and they do it in a funny way. They talk, the dating portion where she couldn't find somebody who just wanted her for her, and then the person that she found for her is not spoiling, not for her.
Yeah.
um but you know they had like even just like some of the comedy, like again the Daredevil one I think is also one of the best episodes of the season. Him explaining the difference between a henchman and a goon, I like keeled
Yep.
over laughing. I was I thought that was hilarious, and I was wondering why I enjoyed the comedy of this entire show so much. The director and like the creator also wrote for Rick and Morty, Robot Chicken, like any silly type of show in that aspect that you could possibly think. And I'm like, there it is,
Yeah.
you know. And the combination of breaking the fourth wall and then her enough courtroom scenes. I mean, I could have used a little more fighting.
Yeah.
That's also why I did like the Daredevil episode, because there actually was a little bit of fighting. But that's a very small nitpicky thing, because I think what they were able to execute was what they were making fun of. It's not like the others. It's not the cookie cutter. It's not the same house on the block in the residential area with the picket fence. It's a different show. And the amount of content that Marvel puts out in general, thank God they have something different, because
Yeah.
Yep.
it's the same thing. And for the people that don't like it because it's not the same, that's you know.
Yeah.
Some people are the kind of people that just want to see something different every so often, and think about the amount of Marvel that we've consumed since 2007 even.
A lot.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's renewed for a second season. The last episode was awesome. She was on a freaking Disney Plus home screen, for gosh sakes, and
Hmm.
it was just
Yep.
great. And yelling at the bot. And also, they should do something with her and Deadpool, especially because
Yeah.
of their similarities and the humor similarity as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Well done, Marvel.
Yeah,
well done.
an enjoyable series and able to make it different, not just, not just for the cameos for the most part, is how I feel like most of things go now.
Yeah,
Rings of Power season finale. I know you guys have talked about it, gotten into a couple episodes. Yes, the beginning is slow, and I did not feel until these last 3 episodes to where there were some real stakes into the building of it, because
real stakes. Okay.
you're told, like, okay, this is what it's about. It's about the rings. Like, this is what
Yep.
it's
Yeah,
about, and the entire season is the build up to the rings. So, and that's not a spoiler. Like, that's just a fact. It's literally called
got
Rings
you.
of Power. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, like, you get there, and then they finally revealed like which character is Lord Sauron. Sorry, Lord Sauron. I'm not sure why I said it like that.
You gave it
I'm
some
glad you
flair.
did.
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad you
did have
did
some
there.
flair
That was
there.
dope.
But like, there's a like for me, I'm like struggling with the fact that, and I'm gonna compare it to House of Dragons a little bit, to where I like Rings of Power because there's actually like some characters that are good and bad. Like, it's kind of written out in plain language there, where in House of Dragons, it doesn't seem like you have anybody to root for. Like, everybody's a piece of
Mm,
crap in House of Dragons, or is trying to deceive someone else. Like, I like
mm,
House of Dragons for the political, kind of medieval political House of Cards thing that they're going for, and then I like Lord of the Rings because of like the ancient fantasy of like aspect that they're going for. And again, yes, the first episodes are slow, but like these past 3 episodes I've had so much fun watching, just because it's all kind of amounted to where the season finale comes into, and that's like the big reveal of who plays Sauron, and kind of what the stranger, also what he's about. So like, all a lot there's all of the questions I think get answered in a good way, and I think like it sets it up for a really good season. As a really good season, it sets it up for the next season, and that's what I want to see more of. We want to see more of what Lord of the Rings lore has to offer, and I think this show did a really good job of that.
okay.
I am gonna watch it. I just was struggling so hard to get into the show
Yeah,
because, like, I was so pumped when they announced it because I love Lord of the Rings. And that first
Mhm.
episode, I watched it like that. I'm like, all right, let's do this. And then I'm like, man, this is boring. Like, I need something to happen. But again, like the Lord of the Rings movies, the beginnings were pretty stale, right? It's a
yeah,
whole lot of
yeah.
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, until you got to the Return of the King, and then it's all just
Right,
an entire just fest of everything that you've ever wanted,
right.
especially
Yeah.
war wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do want to give it its due. I just am struggling to force myself to do it, I
I
guess.
completely understand. I
Hey,
really
you know
do.
what? That's a really good point too, because like you can argue that Helm's Deep into Return of the King
Mhm.
is where all of it is. It's just
Yeah, the
like I
good
feel like
stuff.
Helm's Deep is in that conversation. Like once you get to that battle and then through three, but you
Yep.
have to get there first. And that's a good point, you know. And that kind of it looks like how the season of the show is laid out too. It's just like you just got to get to that hump because it's a build up type of series, clearly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a shot. I just don't know. Like I was planning on watching that, but I wanted to do She-Hulk first.
Yeah.
Um,
It's fair.
and that's what keeps happening to me. Like it's gonna be the same way this week. I'm not done with Cyberpunk, so I'm gonna do Cyberpunk first, and then I'm gonna do that. But like, what if next week there's another show that does the same? Like that. This is my problem with the
Yeah.
show.
Yep.
Is I keep finding things that are just like I can get through this. They get to the point real quick, you know, like that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't
True.
know.
Okay. Hellraiser, which came out on Hulu. I don't know if Barry, I'm sure you haven't watched the original Hellraiser. Craig, I'm
No, the
assuming you
one that
have.
has needles pointing
Mm,
out of his face. No, I don't
Pinhead.
know what would make
Pinhead.
anybody want to watch that.
Pinhead.
So
He's
here's
a
the
nice
thing
guy.
about the original Hellraiser, because I just watched it like a week ago again, to refresh. That is, in my opinion, like when you look at horror movies, I always feel like Hellraiser, specifically the first one, but the second one too, is like masterclass in horror, I think. They're using people in out costumes. It's all practical effects. It's gross.
Yeah.
It's just like, even you look back at that movie, which was made in the 80s, and you're like, I don't know how they pulled some of this stuff off, but they did. And it's just done so well. So it's hard, when they first said they were making a new one, I was like, I don't know. We'll see. I will say that the story is interesting. If you don't know like what Hellraiser is, it's kind of like there's a box, and the people who find the box, they start messing with it because it's a puzzle. And then once you complete the puzzle, there's like a little knife that comes out and cuts you. And then the what are they called? I forget
Seen
what they're called. Cenobites or something is what
yeah,
their
something like
Pinhead and
that.
all of them are called. There's more than just Pinhead. But anyway, I will say that from watching the new movie, they adequately brought over the grossness that you want to see in a Hellraiser. Like, this movie is gross, and like that's just what
Yeah.
Hellraiser is. It's disgusting. It's like, you know, chains coming out of nowhere and ripping people's flesh off, and needles in people's skin and throat, and just gross. You know what I mean? And that's going to turn a lot of people off. I know it did with the original movie, but I think they
Hmm.
did a pretty good job. I don't think it's better than the originals, but I enjoyed my time with it. They kind of leave it open for another one. Don't know that we need that, but and also, I don't think they're considered like male or female, but the Pinhead in this one is definitely more female than the original was more male, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I had a good time with it. I would recommend it if you're into horror movies. Barry, do not watch this movie. It's going to gross you out.
Sweet. All right. Thanks for the
Just
heads
let
up.
it be. Craig, go ahead and watch it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to. I've always tried Hellraiser's never been my favorite,
Mm-hmm.
but I always like to give it a look just as a
Yeah.
person who really enjoys horror.
Mhm.
So if it's gonna dial up the disgusting or keep the disgusting
It's
and dial
gross.
it up times like maybe like 10, I'm
It's
in
so
it.
gross.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I
so
thought
gross.
something yeah, I thought something the other day that I really like gross stuff like with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because like I don't like getting like stuff on me, but if I'm watching like
Yes.
any type of like especially like horror where like somebody's like entrails are coming out, I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's just I'm a weirdo.
Exactly. Yeah.
And but speaking of entrails, I guess
Ooh. Yes.
Halloween ends, which is as far as we know the dramatic end to Jamie Lee Curtis's run in the series, which is quite the long run.
Yeah.
So she is just as invincible as she is in every other one. Like while I was watching this, I was wondering, not in her younger years, but I was wondering how she can go toe to toe with Mike Myers in like her older years. You know, she always
Mhm.
just kind of has like this battle with him, in like an enclosed space, normally a house in a specific part of the movie, it always seems. But they went a different direction with this one, and it's not receiving good praise by certain people. I'm all for it. It's like a focused, without ruining it, it doesn't really, they focus on a younger kid in this one, on like a teenager, and he gets a lot of camera time, and they spend a lot of time building his character up. And that's something that I really haven't seen, because it's just always about the same people, or it's just literally. And this guy comes out of left field. That guy who plays him, I don't know the actor's name, but at least by heart, he really nails the role. And I'm one of the people, if you ever have this conversation or see this conversation get had online, I'm one of the people who are on the side of liking where they went. I heard Stephen King was a big fan of the way they do that, and they asked him why, and he said because they actually focused on character development. That's not his direct quote, but that is something that he said recently about it. And it was kind of refreshing. You don't have to really, you're not really challenged in a lot of scary movies, either not emotionally towards the character, at least, or most of the main characters, they're just kind of like fodder that are set up to die. And you spend like the first 20 minutes as they're usually traveling to the location where they're going to die, learning minuscule things about them. Okay, this person's the jock, this guy's the idiot, this person's the smart one, why are they with the other ones? This person is clearly supposed to be for their looks, and they're going to die first, probably because of the trope and the scary movie layout. Da 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 da. This one you actually watched and you were like, why did they do that? Like, that's like, I looked at Leanne, I looked at my wife, and I was like, and we like, why did they do that in the first 30 minutes of the film? And it was a good why did they do that? And I haven't had a lot of scary movies do that recently, so I recommend it. It's kind of hard to tiptoe around the plot without ruining it, as with any type of movie review that we do. But if you've seen a couple, and maybe you like skip the Rob Zombie ones, but then you came back for this trio, like, you first of all, don't skip the Rob Zombie ones, but maybe you did, and then you're back. Watch this one. Watch the trilogy, because the other two are good, but it kind of builds up to the moment that they do. The ending can feel flat, and when you see, you'll know why. It's just, there's one thing that goes on and you're like, but as far as doing something different in the horror genre, especially for somebody like me who saturates himself with horror stuff this time of year, this did it. So I recommend it.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I don't think so.
I think that's it.
All right, sweet. So that's going to be the end of the podcast here. Thank you guys for listening, and please make sure you like it and review it, share it with your friends if you did enjoy listening to this podcast. If you're interested, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We also have an email at highsensitivitypodcast@gmail.com if you're interested in asking us any hypotheticals or anything like that. We'd love to read them on air. Thank you guys for listening again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.